Today on Locked On Red Wings, is Ben Chiarot and Moritz Seider the worst defensive pairing on the team, and should they be broken up? Also, previewing the game against the Tampa Bay Lightning.
You're Locked On Red Wings, your daily podcast on the Detroit Red Wings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Red Wings podcast. We are your hosts, Brian Fisher and Scotty Bentley. I am a podcast producer of the Daily J, a WWJ News Radio podcast, while Scotty is a freelance journalist for the Detroit News and the host of Locked On Tigers. And today, obviously, we have a game preview for you guys as the Tampa Bay Lightning are facing off against the Detroit Red Wings down at Amalie Arena in Tampa tonight, by the time you're listening to this. But before we get to that, this is something Scotty and I have been wanting to talk about for a while, and many of you have wanted us to talk about, as I've seen it in the comments a bunch. The Ben Chiarot and Moritz Seider pairing, and we've touched on it here and there, but we've never had a full discussion about that pair's effectiveness. Now, this is something that we were afraid of off rip when they signed Ben Chiarot. Is you sign him to a 4-year deal, $4 million, and we weren't completely sold on him as a top pair defenseman. We knew he could play the minutes, and we knew his body could take it. But skill-wise, we weren't sure if he could handle that workload with Moritz Seider. And you know what's funny is I'm finding that those worries were a little bit unfounded. And when I say that, I mean, it's not him himself that's the problem. What he's brought to the table has been fine. The problem is the chemistry that he and Seider have. And we said this when they signed Chiarot, is he himself is an upgrade as a defensive partner for Moritz Seider. But the problem thus far has not been Chiarot, but his pairing with Moritz Seider. In my opinion, they're not horrible, but when you look at the different pairings that the Red Wings have, there's been 4 pairings at even strength that have played over 50 minutes together. And they are the second to worst pairing at expected goals for percentage, at Corsi for percentage. All the possession metrics show that they are the least effective at producing offensive shooting attempts and preventing defensive shooting attempts.
So early on in this season, we brought up the fact that I think for like the first 2 weeks, maybe, that Chiarot looked better than I think we initially expected.
Yes,
and
he was on a bit of a heater.
Right, and I still think that he got off to that good start. I think that was pretty objectively true. He looked pretty solid. I do agree with you that a majority of the, I don't know, issue might be a little too tough, but like the majority of the struggles that pairing has had is due to that. It is due to the pairings chemistry together. And Seider, we've talked about before already this season, has gotten off to not a slow start. Like, he's not bad. He's still Moritz Seider, but I think a lot of people were kind of expecting him to take what he did in his rookie year and take another big step forward and kind of just take off into the stratosphere of production for a defenseman. And we're not quite seeing that. We're not even really quite seeing the production that he was at his peak of last season. So I think that there is a lot that still can change with this pairing. Like, I still think that there's a chance that it works out, but with how honestly amazing the second pairing has been, that's been one of the best defensive pairings in the entire game of hockey, which is awesome. But it's very, I don't know, is like weird just the right word? Can you just say weird? It's just weird.
I'll tell you what I think the issue is. So if I ask you, Scotty, why does Phil Peronic and Oli Mata work so well? What would you say?
You have one defensive defenseman and one offensive defenseman.
Yeah, they
peanut butter and jelly,
yes.
baby.
they cover each other's weaknesses.
Yeah.
Whereas Moritz Seider and Ben Chiarot, they play a similar style of hockey, a physical style in the defensive zone and the offensive zone looking to create chances. On paper, it's like, oh, cool. I got two guys who are the same caliber that are going to do the same thing. But when you get that on the ice, they struggle to find that chemistry of who's going to stay back, who's going to skate up, who's going to play physical. And it ends in miscommunication where they end up with, at even strength, as a pair, they've allowed 24 goals against and 12 goals for. They are, when you look at plus minuses, they are among the worst on the team. And I think it's solely because of their because of their pairing. And there's something you got to keep in mind too, when you talk about pairing, you got to look at workload as well. As this pairing, until recently, Philip Hronek has gotten most of the ice time recently, but that pairing as a pair gets the most ice time out of anyone, and they play against the toughest competition. So whereas Jake Wallman and Jordan Osterley currently have the best expected goals for percentage and Corsi for percentage as a defensive pair on the Detroit Red Wings at like 58%. When they're out there, the team tends to get more scoring chances than give up, but a lot of that has to do with a lot more sheltered minutes and a lot weaker competition. And Jake Wallman has come off of injury playing great. Moritz Seider and Ben Chiarot are playing against the toughest competition. So while their pair has been the least effective, they're also playing against the toughest competition. So I don't think, and I've said
like the most talented players on the team too. Like
Moritz Seider is for sure.
Right. Yeah, for sure. But like I'm saying a pairing with Moritz Seider on it should have the ceiling of playing well against the toughest competition. Like that's like that way on purpose. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that's how it should work. So like you're right. You like objectively, like that's correct, but that is what we want, and that is what Moritz Seider should still be on a pairing that is capable of, like, he makes the ceiling that to where they should be playing still really well against the other team's best competition, I guess is my point. And I think it's tough because like what else would you do?
Nothing. That's the problem, and I kind of want to save that part of the conversation for segment 2 because what's the solution is
Right.
is the big question.
I'm not splitting up the second pairing.
Would you split up the third pairing at this point too, with how good they've been? I mean, it's tough. This might be a tough pill to swallow, but and the thing of it is I think Seider's been playing fine. I don't think that he's been bad by any metric. In fact,
for sure.
I think the worst of the two has been Ben Chiarot, and that is something that we questioned when they signed him to 4x4. I mean, is this a guy capable of playing to that contract? So, and his relative expected goal, so relative to his teammates, he's a negative 7.36 on his own. So you look at the ratio, like he negatively impacts scoring chances for to scoring chances against on versus the off the ice. Like the team is better with him on the bench. And again, you look at the minutes, you look at it's just, what can you do, really? What can you do to make this pairing really light it up? Because it's past the quarter-way point. At this point, you think the chemistry should be there. You would think that maybe they would have developed, it's past the point where you can shrug it off and go, okay, well, this is just, early, a new defensive partner. You're just trying to figure things out. And for Moritz Seider, like you said, it could very well be a little bit of a sophomorish slump as he's trying to adjust his game back to the fact that the NHL has adjusted to his game. So there's a lot of factors at play here, and I don't expect, especially Moritz Seider, and I'm not going to say play poor, but to play this meh for the entire season. I do think he'll pick it up at some point, and he's begun to pick it up recently. But it is definitely a
really good against
conversation.
Columbus for whatever that's worth.
I mean, does it come to a point that I say, like, you don't break up your pairs, but maybe you invert who's pair 1, pair 2, and see how that gets you? I mean, the solutions are tough. There's no clear-cut solution because everything else on the defensive side of the puck is working. All your other defensive pairs are working right now. It's just that top pair that's not quite clicking all the way. If they could figure out how to click, defense would actually be pretty dang good. But that top pairing just seems to be missing that extra something.
I agree.
So when we come back, we'll talk about possible solutions, if there are any, and then we'll do a game preview against the game against the Tampa Bay Lightning. But first, I got to talk to you guys today about SimpliSafe. At Lockdown Red Wings, we believe homes should be where you and your family feel safest, especially over the holidays. This season, give yourself and your family the gift of peace and protection with the #1 rated home security system, SimpliSafe. And right now, SimpliSafe is offering Locked On Red Wings listeners 40% off their new security system. But don't pull this off. Here's why you're going to love it. SimpliSafe was named the best home security system of 2022 by U.S. News and World Report, a third year in a row. In an emergency, 24/7 professional monitoring agents use Fast Protect technology exclusively from SimpliSafe to capture critical evidence and verify the threat is real, so you can get higher priority police response. 24/7 professional monitoring service costs under $1 a day, less than half the price of traditional home security systems. Don't miss this chance to save big on your favorite security system. Get 40% off any new system at simplisafe.com/lockdownnhl today. That's simplisafe.com/lockdownnhl. There's no safe like SimpliSafe. Segment 2, Locked On Red Wings podcast. Scotty, Ben Chiarot, Moritz Seider, not horrible, but definitely not the pairing we were expecting or hoping them to be. Moritz Seider's taken a little bit of a step back this season. Not horrible, but slid back a little bit from his dominance last season. Ben Chiarot's come in, and he hasn't necessarily complimented Moritz Seider the way we hoped he had or hoped he would. But how do you fix that problem when your other two defensive pairings at the moment are playing so well?
That's a difficult question. I will say that I do think that this team is in a position now where we talk about the consistency and maybe the lack thereof at times. A top pairing that is solid and playing well night in and night out and is clicking like we want them to would help the consistency tenfold. Like that would be a that would, I think, be a huge reason and a huge factor in taking this team to the next level when it comes to production and when it just comes to that consistency. That's the pairing that, like you said, is going up against the best offensive talent on the other side and is getting the most minutes, presumably. So that would be a huge factor if they were able to kind of click and get that chemistry down. When it comes to like personnel moves on how to fix it, I don't think there's any option. Like, it'd be one thing if this was the worst pairing in hockey, right? It'd be one thing if this was like, this absolutely stinks. They are terrible together. Like, then obviously you split it up. But the second pairing has legitimately been like a top 20 defensive pairing in the sport, which we've talked about before. And the third pair has been really, really effective, as you mentioned earlier as well. And the first pair just hasn't been that good. It's not that they've been terrible. And like, I don't think there's anything to do. Like, I think you just have to keep personnel wise. I don't think there's anything you do. We can talk about what they might have to do on the ice differently to kind of maybe mesh better. But I don't think there is a personnel move that you can just make and be like, oh yeah, this will maybe fix things, or this will maybe at least kind of throw a wrench in it, I guess, in a good way, and kind of like spice things up and try something new. Like, I don't really think there's any personnel moves to make. Like, these are the defensive pairings. And like, yeah. I don't know what else you could really do.
I agree. I mean, you look at the lineup as it is, and I said it in segment 1, but outside of Chiarot and Seider, the rest of the defensive pairs at the moment are doing their jobs. I mean, Hronek and Mata has been easily the best defensive pair on the team in production and defensively. Hronek's picked this game up. We know what we're getting out of Mata. He's great defensively. So that pair has been dynamite. And then in 9 games played as a defensive pair, Jordan Osterley and Jake Wallman this season have been the best in their sheltered minutes at preventing scoring chances against. And Wallman's got enough of a cannon that he's producing enough offense at his own clip. And so, you look at that, you don't want to break either of those pairs that are being effective up. It just stinks that you're the pair that is you're supposed to be getting the most minutes is the pair
Right.
that has been least effective so far. Moritz Seider and Ben Chiarot actually to the point where even though they are the set pair number one, they actually have 30 less minutes of time on the ice together than Olli Maatta and Filip Hronek.
Makes sense.
And, you play your best defensive pair. You play the pair that's been playing better. So, that was going to be my suggestion is maybe you make Seider and Chiarot defensive pair number 2 until they figure it out and make Hronek and Maatta defensive pair number 1 because they're playing so well. And you mentioned it in the Columbus game and the Vegas game that Hronek's been getting more ice time than Seider more recently because he's been on this hot streak. I didn't realize obviously it makes sense in hindsight that of course the entire pair would then be getting more ice time. But yeah, 30 minutes of more ice time. So while Chiarot and Seider are still officially your number 1, that's a whole half game's worth of time on the ice that the other pair has gotten because of how well they're playing. And maybe that's your solution is that you just keep trotting out the defensive pair that's playing better in your clutch moments.
That's so frustrating, though. Like, Seider is maybe the most talented player on this entire roster. And yet we can't figure out a game plan, a scheme. Maybe you do switch personnel. Like, we can't do anything. Like, we're just like, oh, yeah, like, maybe the most talented dude on the entire roster. But, I guess he's just going to be in the second pair because we can't figure out how to make it work. Like, sorry. Like, that's super frustrating. And I'm not saying you're wrong, but, like, that's really, like, disheartening if that's just what the game plan is going to be.
It is. And we talked in first segment about how, Moritz Seider's play might have something to do with the fact that he and Ben Chiarot don't have chemistry together. But you look at who Moritz Seider played with last year. I mean, it was the corpse of Danny DeKeyser and Jordan Osterley, who's just barely a third pair defenseman on this team this year. And we knew that last year that on most teams, he would probably be your seventh D-man, although he's playing really well as your sixth D-man right now because Lindstrom's out. But, it is very frustrating because Moritz Seider is the type of guy that you expect to, no matter who he's playing with, can take over a game. And he hasn't done that this year. And I understand sophomore slumps happen. But also, you don't want to take Ben Chiarot off that top pair because you're paying him $4 million a year. My other suggestion would have been put Jake Wallman with Moritz Seider because Jake Wallman's been playing phenomenal. So give him a shot up in the lineup. Again, you don't want to break up Hronek and you don't want to break up Maatta. So put Wallman with Seider, see what they can do. Wallman is tried and true offensive defenseman. So I don't know how that would clash with Moritz Seider, who can play both sides of the ice. But just to shake up your defensive pairing, see how that works. But then you're putting Chiarot on the third defensive pairing when you're paying him $4 million a year. You're hoping you wouldn't have to do that until year 4 of his contract, not year 1. Right. So, I mean, it just begs that question, like, a quarter way through the season.
Is there a strategy thing they could change? Like, is there a X's and O's thing? Like, the second pairing works so well because it's offensive defenseman and defensive defenseman. Maybe you tell Chiarot that he's going to be the physical defensive defenseman and tell Seider to play a more offensive defenseman approach. Just to, like, I don't want that. Like, I don't want to, after game 82, look around and go, okay, well, for Moritz Seider's entire second year, he got the third most minutes on the team. Like, he should be leading us in minutes night in and night out. And it's just, it's a frustrating situation.
I'm just curious here. I had it organized by Detroit Red Wings only, but I filtered it to the entire league. And so at regular strength, even strength, the Detroit holy cow. Olli Maatta and Filip Hronek are the 12th best defensive pairing in the league with at least 300 minutes played together at Corsi for percentage at 49.92.
We talked about, I think we talked about goals for percentage, but we talked about it a few weeks ago when they were like 14th or 15th. So
that's insane. I'm trying to find, I have a feeling I'm going to have to scroll down quite far to find our boy. Actually, it won't even let me scroll because the website's great sometimes. Actually, I can see them right here. I think that's them. So they're 20th actually in the league at 300 minutes played, which is actually, I think, this is out of 20 defensive pairings that have played at least 300 minutes together. They are 20th. in Corsi for percentage, while the Olimata-Hronek pair are 12th. So not as good as I thought when I filtered it that way. But still, the fact that they're 20th out of 20 does speak a lot. Let me lower that filter to 200 minutes played together and see how that affects things. Here we go. Now we're scrolling. So when you lower that filter to 200 minutes played, Ben Chiarot and Moritz Seider are 37th out of 40 in Corsi for percentage.
Yeah.
While Olimata and Filip Hronek are 22nd out of 40.
Great.
So there's still both of them. But in comparative to the Red Wings, Filip Hronek and Olimata obviously are the best. But that's crazy that they are near the bottom every time I lower the filter. I don't even want to lower to 100. I'm really scared to see. The problem is once you begin to lower it and you get smaller sample sizes, pairs that are on a hot streak will begin to really do well.
That's why. Yeah, exactly.
That's when you get Robert Hagg and Gustav Lindstrom at 103 out of 108.
Heck yeah.
That's a great pair right there.
Heck yeah.
Oh, man, I'm really afraid of where this could be. It might take me a while. Scroll this. Well, Olimata and Filip Hronek are 52 out of 108, so now we're in the top half. So I know they're below that, but I'm just fooling around now. So let's get to our second ad break, and we'll come back and we'll preview the game against the Tampa Bay Lightning. Basically, guys, to wrap up the conversation is we don't know how to fix this because your other two pairs are playing fantastic. You just keep banging your head against the wall and hope that it works out right now. You got to stay patient and hope that it can work out. 88, I just saw it. They're 88 out of 108. I just saw it.
Nice.
With at least 100 minutes played. So stay tuned to Lockdown Red Wings. Segment 3, Lockdown Red Wings. The Red Wings play the Tampa Bay Lightning tonight, 7 o'clock in Tampa, which wild to me that we made it to December without playing Tampa Bay. That's crazy to me because you're going to have to play them. I mean, granted, you play until April, so there's still 4 more months to get your 4 games in, but you play them twice in December. This will be the first matchup. We all know that last year didn't go so well against the Tampa Bay Lightning, but maybe this year can be different. We'll see. They are 15-8-1 overall. They're third in the Atlantic Division, just 2 points above the Detroit Red Wings. So this game, it has some impact. You get a win against the team that is above you in the standings, and you can just get to surpass them. So they, though, are still always the threat that they have always been. 3 straight Stanley Cup final appearances. They won back-to-backs. Nikita Kucherov, 36 points in 24 games played. Steven Stamkos, 29 and 24. Braden Point, 24-24. Mikhail Sergachev, 23-24. They are stacked down the lineup. And, of course, they have the Vezina threat that is Vasilevsky, off to a bit of a slower start so far this season. Only a save percentage of .909. But goals against average, despite that, still under 3 because his team plays such good defense in front of him. Even if he plays poorly, he's still letting in less than 3 a game because they're only getting, 25 shots on net a night. Correct. This team is going to be, I can't say the word, it's going to be a problem to play against.
Yeah, to say the least. This is obviously one of the most talented rosters in the NHL year in and year out. I think the biggest thing for me in this game is special teams. This is one of the best power play units in the entire NHL. And we talk about I think they're 4th top 5 unit in the league, though. And that's, again, we've been kind of talking about that all season and just reiterating the fact that special teams is so vital for the Red Wings at their current construction and just how they play and their play style this season. Winning the special teams battle is going to be vital, and that's a tough team to win the special teams battle against.
No, absolutely. And, you look at their penalty kill, then you go, okay, well, maybe if they take penalties, you can take advantage. The penalty kill is not horrible either. It's currently ranked, helps if I filter it by penalty kill. I know they're currently ranked they're 19th in the league at 77.9. The Red Wings, for their own merit, are 15th in the league at penalty kill, and I think 18th in the league on power play, which is in the wheelhouse of what you and I were hoping for this season. Yeah. Stay between 10 and 20 for that tangible step forward. So I think Obviously, we want the Red Wings to win this game, but we understand the task at hand. This is the Tampa Bay Lightning. They are not a slouch of a hockey team, one of the best in the league, and they're going to be in the mix for division, well, maybe not division championship with how much the Bruins are running away with the division, but second or third right now at the very least for the division. They're going to be in that race. Your goal in this game, if not win, which is always the number one goal, but do what you have been doing. Play them close at 5-on-5. Try and cut out on mistakes that cost you, because Derek Lalonde has said it, and it was very obvious in the game against Vegas. You're not good enough to make mistakes. You have to play at 5-on-5. Try to play mistake-free hockey. That is how you're going to win. Obviously, Ville Husso being great will be an awesome bonus. But those two things are going to be what I'm looking for in a game against the Tampa Bay Lightning, because these games against these monster juggernaut teams are the ones that tell me the most how far this team has come in terms of the rebuild. I was impressed in the loss against Toronto. I was impressed in the loss against Vegas, because they showed that while they lost 4-2 and 4-1 respectively, all the numbers point that they hung with those teams. It was just mistakes that cost you. If you can cut down on those mistakes and you can just play this team close, and I'm sorry if this sounds like I'm a defeatist, but I know what this Red Wings team is. I know where they're at, and I know what my expectations are. And just playing this team close and tight is a tangible step forward for this team. Winning will be great, and you can always, it's an NHL, you can always sneak a win out. But just that would make me happy.
For sure. And that's something we've talked about all season. And I think if they do play them close, then again, you're talking about steps forward in the consistency department. And that's something that over the last few weeks we've been beating teams that we're better than and losing to teams that are better than us on paper. And so that is a, whether we like it or not, that is a step forward from last season with the wild inconsistency that was last year's Detroit Red Wings. And honestly, I think that if they I don't want to ever say like, oh, we should be, happy with a loss. No, like I hate losing more than anything. Like, no, we should never be like happy and pleased with a loss. But I think it would speak volumes to the growth that's already happening just in the first quarter of the season if they were able to play like a meaningful third period in a close game. And that's something that is significantly more tangible and I don't want to say realistic, because they can realistically win if they put it all together, but that it's something that's a lot less steep of a goal for sure. But the goal, like you said, is obviously always to win. And I think with Husso in net, and you have a really good night on the penalty kill, and I think you're going to give yourself a fighter's chance.
Yeah, you just, it's like I said, man, you got to play near perfect hockey. If you need Husso in net to be on his game, which he normally is, I'm not saying this is an impossible task. Like this Tampa Bay Lightning team, I mean, I listed it for you. Offensively, they're still very good, and they don't allow a lot of shots against per game. But this Tampa Bay Lightning team is not the same juggernaut they were.
Faced Dominic Kubalik, though.
They haven't faced Dominic Kubalik yet. So
they haven't faced the shotgun. Just a million pellets just going everywhere.
That's literally everywhere. You never know where it's going to land. But I don't want to sound defeatist when I say these things. I don't want to make it sound like I'm expecting them to lose. But I just understand what the Tampa Bay Lightning are, and I understand what the Detroit Red Wings are. If the Detroit Red Wings win tomorrow or tonight, fan-freaking-tastic. I'll be ecstatic, and you're going to have me on the pod saying I called it, which we'll both know is untrue.
Which you didn't.
Which I didn't. But, I'm going to skew the narrative and change the goalposts.
I respect it.
If they lose and they play close, I'll go, that was a good game. And I know there's no moral victories. People love to spew that out there, and I've said it in the past. But Jesus, this is the Tampa Bay Lightning. 3 straight Stanley Cup finals, and you have not sniffed the playoffs in years. So play them close. Sneak a win if you can, but if not, just play them close.
I'm with it.
So I don't know. Any final thoughts, man? What's their over-under at? What's the over-under puck line?
Probably 6.
Probably 6 or 6.5. 6.
I'll take the over.
I'll take the over as well. especially with Andrei Vasilevsky not being as dominant as he was in recent years. I'll take that over.
I'll take the O.
So, all right, man. Any final thoughts?
I don't think so. We ball, baby.
We ball. We'll be back tomorrow with a game recap. Same time, same place. Your team every day.
Every day.